thank you tour comes the big presser. President-elect Donald Trump gearing up to hold a big media event with his children, announcing he will separate himself from his businesses. But someone here on this panel says easier said than done. Is that person right or wrong? Hi, everyone. I am Trish Regan. I am in for David Asman this week. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus right now to find out with Mike Ozanian, Sabrina Schaefer, Bill Baldwin, John Tamney, and Bruce Japsen. All right, I'm going to start with you, Mike. Do you think he can do this here? I mean, he's got to separate this big, massive company that he has successfully built from everything that he's going to do in the White House.
Of course, Trish. Look, the naysayers have been wrong about Donald Trump from the beginning. They said when he announced he was going to run, he wouldn't win the primary. He didn't stand a chance. Then when he got to the general election, they said he had no chance. He won that. They're wrong about this as well. They keep underestimating how smart and how tenacious Donald Trump is, and they're wrong again here.
Bruce, can you separate Donald Trump, the businessman, from Donald Trump, the President of the United States?
Well, first of all, I want to know how smart he is. I want to see that tax return and know where all of his stuff is around the world, so then we can make a call on that. But I don't think you're ever going to be able to, as much as I want to escape the Trump brand. I mean, his kids will carry it on, and so if he does divest, you're still going to have the appearance of conflicts.
Okay. So elaborate on it a little bit. So you think there's the appearance of conflicts because if his children are in charge, wouldn't you run into that no matter who was in charge then?
You could be. I mean, I think when they were talking about Hillary divesting herself from the foundation, okay, and they said it wasn't good enough, even if Chelsea stayed on the board, people were worried about conflicts and so forth. So we have to see where everything is. We have to see who's going to run it, and we just need more transparency before we can make that final call.
You know, look, Sabrina, there are those out there that are calling for him to just, put this in a blind trust. I'd say, it's kind of hard to just dissolve a multi-billion-dollar business that you've spent your entire life building. And do we really want to expect that from our presidents? In other words, that would basically say, hey, no business owner, no entrepreneur should ever run for president of the United States unless you're willing to lose your business.
That is exactly, Trish, that is exactly the point. I think there are a lot of Americans who are genuinely enthusiastic about having a president who is not a career politician. This is something really new for the country, but it presents a very big problem because people haven't realized just how large government is. There is nothing from tax policy to labor policy to health care policy to environmental policy that will not affect that business. So they will probably try to do everything legally correctly, but I hope that this sort of reminds Americans why we need to rein in government. If you want better leaders, if you want leaders who are not career politicians, then we are going to have to rein in government in order to prevent this kind of conflict of interest.
All right, Bill, where do you come out on it?
Well, I think the biggest scandal of all is one that the good government nannies haven't even noticed, which is that if the president-elect succeeds in inflating the currency with all of his tax cuts and his spending, he's going to create a windfall gain for himself because he owns real estate, and it will come at the expense of people who have lent him money.
All right, so what do you tell me? Like, you can't have any money? You're president of the United States, you can't have built anything? I mean, because, gosh, by darn it, you're going to benefit along with the American people? I mean, don't we want to see the economy grow? Don't we want to see people prosper?
Right.
Bill.
We do, but I think the only fair thing to protect my bond portfolio is if the president sells everything and invests all the money in Treasury bonds.
All right, what do you think of that idea, Sabrina?
Well, look, I mean, I think one thing to sort of keep in mind is that a lot of the regulations that, Trump rolling back certain regulations that would help Trump would probably help a lot of Americans, and it would certainly spur economic growth and job creation if we sort of reined in the executive branch. So I'm all for some of this, but I think that we need to be transparent about it.
All right. A couple of you here are concerned about it. I would only go back to what we saw with Hillary Clinton. I mean, you think about John, this came out very recently, right before the election, the fact that Qatar actually gave $1 million donation to the foundation as something that she and her family were able to benefit from, yet she never disclosed it. I mean, here we are talking about Donald Trump and his business. Is there a bit of a double standard in that nobody was bringing up some of these issues regarding Hillary Clinton?
Well, by definition, there's going to be a double standard, but I don't think the focus has been enough on the basic truth that Trump should have never proclaimed that he would separate himself from the business in the first place. I think what people want, I think what voters have said they want, is they want politicians in Washington to be exposed to what's going on out in the real world so that maybe they legislate better. I'd also add in the case of Trump that he's got a lot of bad ideas about trade and other things. I'm generally better off when people are in Washington are doing less. So I love the idea of him being distracted all 4 years because maybe they won't create the laws that make us all worse off.
Say that again. You think that they're distracted, or they will be distracted by the likes of...
Well, let's hope so. If Donald Trump is focused on his business interests, that means he can legislate less. I always liked that Bill Clinton had other different kinds of distractions.
Let me share with you.
A good thing.
Oh, well, certainly, yeah, all kinds of distractions. All right, let me share with you what the president-elect tweeted this week. He said, "While I am not mandated to do this under the law, I feel it is visually important as president to in no way have a conflict of interest with my various businesses. Hence, legal documents are being crafted which take me completely out of business operations." So, you know, he's gearing up for what seems like a real exit from it. And, you know, his children will be in charge. Bill, what kind of, you know, what pause does that give you?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's possible for any president to be totally clean and totally separated. I don't think Trump is going to follow my advice to sell everything and buy bonds. I mean, George Washington, did he divest his plantation? Did he have a conflict when he signed the Fugitive Slaves Act in 1789?
I'm just saying, what are you suggesting then? Again, and getting back to this idea that no one who's successful, who has created a business, can then be president, because you're going to have to sell the whole darn thing? Go ahead, Sabrina.
Well, you know, one of the big differences is when you look back at some of the presidents who did have businesses, someone like Herbert Hoover, who had a mining engineering company. The big difference was this was before the modern presidency and the modern executive powers, which is so large that influences every part of our lives. I think it's great that we have someone now who does not come sort of from Washington, that has built something and that has gotten his hands dirty, so to speak. But I think it's going to be hard moving forward to attract more people at different levels of government when government is this large. This should be a moment where all Americans are saying, let's rein it in.
All right, let's rein it in. Mike, your response.
Look, the Trump presidency is going to be under the microscope, right? And he'll put it under the microscope himself. The shenanigans at the Clinton Foundation went largely unnoticed until this election came around. So if you don't think that anything Trump's going to do that may even give the slightest hint isn't appropriate, won't be noticed, I think you're all wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
No, I think you're right.
I mean, Bruce, you know, you got to admit that the media in some ways has had a double standard in this one, in that they have over and over and over and over again gone after Donald Trump for things that, you know, they kind of gave Clinton a pass on.
Well, they went over and over and over again on Hillary's emails and so forth. We didn't get them all.
Did they? Because, you know, I know we did, and I know I did on my show, but I wouldn't say the mainstream media was as focused on that story as some other members of the media.
Well, I would say there's two differences between the Clinton Foundation and Donald Trump. The Clinton Foundation has to file a tax return every year that people have seen, and we knew who was getting paid what and so forth. And we don't know any of that with Trump. And we need to know that.
You know, well, I would beg to differ in that I think there are still a lot of questions about the Clinton Foundation. We don't need to go back there because at this point it's kind of history. But, yeah, there are questions for sure on both sides. All right, coming up.